This is the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
Okay, guys, let's just rip. And Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall. Chris, thanks for being with me tonight.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall.
Now, he puts the broad in broadband. It's Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Hey there, welcome in. Glad you're here on Holy Week. It's the 5th day of April. It's a Wednesday, middle of the week, and I'm so glad you downloaded the Chris Stigall Show podcast, particularly today. For those of you that maybe don't quite understand what's unfolding, or you're busy and you don't always have the time to follow this blow by blow, today is an important day. Today is a day where we really dissect all that happened yesterday, all that didn't happen, and what's really going on. This is a critically important show, I think, for those who just kind of have a surface level understanding of what this indictment was for Trump. I hope it's something that if you take from it, you'll share it with other people that maybe you think could learn a thing or two about what's actually going on and what we're really watching. Joe Concha, media correspondent from The Hill. He's a Fox News contributor. He'll give us his media analysis of it. The media, particularly the mainstream media's reaction to this yesterday, is extraordinarily important for not just that they're biased, but for a very specific reason. And I'm going to get into that coming up. I hope you will hang with the show today and check it out and maybe share it. A written review is always helpful, and a 5-star review, which you can do at Spotify and Apple Podcast. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom of menu of shows in Apple, that's where you can leave a review and a 5 stars, and I'd appreciate you. And I know that the guy that sponsors this show, John Ruhlman, would love to talk with you. I would appreciate you calling him if you're trying to save some money on health insurance. Are you paying way too much on your monthly premiums? I had a 30, 40-minute conversation with John Ruhlman. It's on video right now at chrisstigall.com, and I always encourage people, if they, I don't know John Ruhlman. Do I really want to call him? I hear Chris talk about him, but I feel weird calling. That's why I will record conversations with our clients as best I can often, because I like you to hear them and see them yourself, so you have a sense of who you're reaching out to. John and his team at usmedicalplan.com are obsessed with one thing and one thing only. They have 80 different insurers that they work with, private health insurers. If you're a younger person, my 18-year-old son, soon he's going to graduate, and then he's going to start talking about his own kind of job or whatever. I'll probably look at moving him to his own private health insurance plan, because it's dirt cheap for an 18-year-old healthy kid. And if he should get severely injured, God forbid, John Ruhlman has plans that actually pay him money, like real money. And I'm not kidding. Let John explain what that means. Younger, healthy people shouldn't be paying out the nose for a health insurance premium, and you should have a plan that actually takes care of you and pays you if you're really injured. Now, as for the rest of us who are a little older, maybe you have a small business, maybe you buy your health insurance out of pocket for your family. I have a friend that saved over $2,000 a month just by making a phone call. $2,000. He got better coverage and saved $2,000 a month. I mean, for most people, that's in and around a mortgage payment, for heaven's sakes. Can you imagine saving that kind of money on your health insurance premium? Small business, are you buying a supplemental because you're retired to go along with your Medicare? You got to talk to John. It's just going to take a couple of minutes. He also has an awesome care department, so you can shop and compare, get new cards. They will help you sort through claims, get payments, negotiate and talk with doctors and hospitals so you don't have to. It's just invaluable to me. 877-410-4321, 877-410-4321, or usmedicalplan.com. This was more toothless and more ridiculous than we even thought. This was more... all week, since last week, they have been saying, we really have to wait to see what's it. 34 counts. We really, the responsible thing. You can't say, even some Republicans were saying, Stigall, it is irresponsible for you to say there's nothing there. Even people like Andy McCarthy and Legal Beagles coming on your show and saying things like, I just don't see anything here. You don't know. There are 34 counts. You don't know that there's nothing in this. It's not responsible for us to say, there may be something bombshell in this. And there were people, don't you doubt it, there were people holding out hope yesterday. 34 counts. Just wait until we see them. And then they came, And I tell you something, if ever this was, it's analogous to the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. It's Linus waiting for the Great Pumpkin while the kids are out trick-or-treating. I mean, the left wants to pretend this is something. It's nothing. And even what they might kind of hint at being something is federal in nature, which Alvin Bragg has no jurisdiction over. I mean, I think most people that are following this already know and understand what this is. There are some people, quite frankly, that were texting me that don't follow this closely. They say, is Trump going to jail? I said, oh, well, they're going to try. Remember, Christine asked me, how I thought I saw this playing out. I said, this is just act 1 of 3. I mean, this is not, don't get too over invested in this one. There's 2 more to come. Down in Georgia, they're on deck already, salivating, and there's a real wackadoodle in D.C. If they don't get him in Georgia, after this one flops in Manhattan, they're going to try it in D.C. on the Mar-a-Lago raid on January 6th. So I said, we are going to, and then Christine asked me yesterday, she said, does this mean he can't win? I said, well, what do you mean? Do you mean the general or do you mean the primary? I said, if you had to ask me right now, am I putting money on him winning the Republican primary? I would. If you're forcing me to bet money, yes. Particularly after yesterday. I think any fair-minded, sober American of goodwill who's not a hyper-partisan looked at yesterday, if they know even the scant details, and have now officially said to themselves, I'm not even sure I care about Trump anymore. This is about something bigger. Yesterday is about something so much bigger than the man now, which is always what has been true. Donald Trump, you were Donald Trump before Donald Trump. Does that make sense? You, those who voted for Donald Trump, those of you who voted Trump twice and considered yourselves MAGA, Make America Great Again, those of you who love this country and have wanted to defend her, and you don't want to see it ruined and destroyed. You were MAGA before Donald Trump. Donald Trump lent voice to it. And these people have thought to themselves that if somehow they could slay Donald Trump and impugn Donald Trump and malign and embarrass Donald Trump, you'd go away. And of course, what they never understood was that you were Donald Trump before Trump. This was never about the man. This is what he symbolizes for you. This is not about him being some sort of Christ-like martyr. I mean, by the way, I have heard some people make that comparison, and I hate that. That's gross. Don't do that. That's gross. Don't do that. He's not Jesus. He's not close, and there's no symbolism to Christ. Don't do that. Not necessary. Everyone understands what this is. This is political persecution, and that's enough. Every American who loves this country understands what we just saw. It's really bad. When you have South American countries, leaders, tweeting, and they literally did. I predicted this. I said, how do tin horn, third world, and much smaller countries view this? And we already knew in Mexico they were mocking the fact that we'd raided the guy's home. I don't remember which guy, can't remember which Central American or South American leader yesterday tweeted, so you guys aren't going to lecture the rest of the world on democracy anymore, right? Not after this? And he's right. You can't. This is a disgrace. This is going after, persecuting, and trying to jail a political leader, a political challenger to those in power. And everyone who is fair-minded sees it. And it's rooted in nothing. The worst part is, this isn't even close to criminal. You know, yes, people, look, even The Hill, for instance. The Hill is bummed out. Because if you read what they say, the first thing they say, and it's so cute. It's like you just want to tussle their hair. They say that yesterday was a really bad look for Trump. Boy, the imagery was really bad. Ooh, boy, it looked bad. And then you get a little deeper in the column, and it says, okay, what actually happened? And they go, yeah, well, nothing really. It's literally what the column says. Ooh, this looked awful. Oh, boy, what a bad look. The pictures, the courtroom, the going in, looked bad. Yeah, okay, but what was he charged? Well, the charges are flimsy. There's really no charges. Which just proves the point. This was an absolutely ridiculous exercise that even some of the most partisan media had to say, there's nothing in this. And then when Trump goes back to Mar-a-Lago and tries to offer a response last night, this also proves to you that they don't treat this as a solemn occasion. All day yesterday, you heard these people saying, oh, what a serious moment. I don't take any joy in this. This is a very serious moment for the country. So many left-wingers trying through, hidden smirks. I mean, like biting their lips and their tongues, trying desperately to not grin and laugh, as they would say, this is such a serious moment in the country. Really, we should all just pause and reflect on just how serious. Right. So if you believe that this is really that serious, right? If you're really just destroyed and distraught for the country that a former president is being indicted and the seriousness of this cannot be overstated, wouldn't you then, in the spirit of being a news organization, wouldn't you think that it would be justifiable that you would carry the indicted former president's remarks in response to this live when he goes to the microphone last night? Wouldn't you think? If it's that serious, if you're really that solemn and somber about it, and you really believe this is unprecedented for the country, you would air it, wouldn't you? You'd say, well, this is a news story. A former president's been indicted. Let's carry his remarks in response. If you were a serious, very deeply disturbed news organization who understood that this imperils the country. But that's not what they did. Here's what Rachel Maddow said in justifying MSNBC refusing to air Donald Trump's response to this last night.
Is making remarks tonight from his home in Florida. As far as we can tell, and what we were prepared for here is that this is basically a campaign speech in which he is repeating his same lies and allegations against his perceived enemies. It is just getting started. So far, he's just giving his normal list of grievances. We don't consider that necessarily newsworthy, and there's a cost to us as a news organization of knowingly broadcasting untrue things. So our deal with you is that we will monitor these remarks. If he does say anything newsworthy, we will turn them around and report on that right away. But for now, just know that it's happening and we're not taking it.
Yeah, it's not newsworthy. So now it's not newsworthy. So is it the most serious thing that's ever befallen the country? Are these truly dark and unprecedented times that we've never seen before in our history? Yes, that's true. We all agree on that. But you see, the difference is they don't mean it. They don't mean it. This is a one-way street. This is a partisan exercise to take out a guy they want gone and to give him airtime like they used to. Remember, we talked about this yesterday. They made him, and they know it. They're not going to make that mistake again. They don't want to give him a platform to respond. They don't want him to speak. This judge yesterday effectively warned him, you better not cross the line. We're not going to issue a gag order, but you better be careful. And so as such, I will say, as for Trump himself, that was the most disciplined, focused set of remarks Donald Trump's given in years. Did you notice that? He was on script. He never strayed. It was tight. It wasn't an hour. I don't know. What did he do? 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes? And he did not stray from the prompter. And I thought, smart. Chris, my wife, who watches this with me and is not a big fan of Donald Trump's rhetorical skills. She voted for him twice, but she's not a fan of Trump's speeches. They just infuriate her. And so she will leave the room. Not because she doesn't support him, not because she doesn't like him. She finds the speeches tough to get through. But what she notices is when he gives a speech that is focused and not just riffing, she notices it and she likes it. Now, you can criticize her and say that's a style thing or whatever, but that's just true. And she's not alone. And I know there are other people in the audience that feel that way. So I'm sharing that with you anecdotally to say, Trump last night was extremely focused. Christine was interested in it, and she stayed with it the entire time and told me she was impressed with it. She is sort of my mini focus group. She's my dial test in the living room. I can tell by the way she reacts how normal. I'm not normal, folks, and probably many of you in this audience aren't normal either. We consume way too much of this stuff. And so it's often hard to be objective and wonder, how do people who don't follow this every day, certainly for their living, but people who don't breathe this stuff, we often think the whole world thinks the way we do. And sadly, most of the people in this country do not think the way we do. And by sadly, I don't even mean they don't agree with us. I mean, they don't follow it. So Christine has friends that were texting her last night, is Donald Trump going to jail? And why are they asking that? One, out of concern. Two, because they don't know. They don't know. Donald Trump's been indicted. Big circus. They saw the circus, but they were out there leading their lives, taking their kids to school, working a job, cooking the dinner. Like by the time he's speaking, they're tucking kids in bed, they're getting in bed. There's a lot going on in people's lives that wasn't Donald Trump's indictment. And so for people that don't pay attention to this stuff, they may be inclined, and this is why the Hill is correct, the imagery was bad for Trump, and that's all they need. And so giving him a platform on a place like MSNBC to respond to it, where he was quite good, that's what they don't want. That's what a lot of the left was hopeful for, that he wouldn't even be able to respond yesterday, that he'd be gagged. Even though the former president's arraignment has been anticipated for days, writes the Hill, the actual footage packed a real punch. Style over substance, style over substance. Not the merits of anything, just what it looks like. So what of the actual charges? They don't have any. Literally. They do not accuse him of an actual crime in a 34-count indictment. I'm not kidding. They don't. They say he committed a federal crime in covering up a crime they have not disclosed. If that makes sense. They say he committed a crime to cover up other activity that they have not defined or explained. And the crime they say he committed was a federal elections violation. And that's already been adjudicated by the Federal Elections Commission. After, and by the way, they're saying this crime that's already been adjudicated as a non-crime occurred after he took office. So the allegation is he committed a federal crime of which he's already been investigated, absolved, and cleared of to win the presidency, to dupe voters. But the activity they're alleging was criminal happened after he became president. I'm not making this up. It's literally in the documents, if you choose to read it. It's almost impossible to explain. It's so stupid. And on top of all that, this is a Manhattan DA, folks. This is not a federal prosecutor. This guy, even what he's alleging, which has already been adjudicated and litigated and cleared and happened after Trump became president. I mean, my head hurts trying to tell you that. Even after all that, he doesn't even have standing to bring the charges. There's nothing in this. And they don't even explain why he did what he did to cover. They can't tell you what the crime is he committed in order to, that he was trying to cover up. So the imagery was bad, but again, even the Hill has to say the substance was underwhelming. Neither the indictment itself nor the statement of facts emerged as a smoking gun, nor were there truly dramatic new details. The indictment simply laid out counts, cataloging dates, and a kind of financial paperwork that Bragg alleges falsely concealed payments to Trump's erstwhile attorney and fixer Michael Cohen. The statement of facts outlined details already known about these payments to Daniels, as well as a separate deal, blah, 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 blah. Long story short, writes the Hill, the legal documents unveiled yesterday were underwhelming. And that's very good news for Trump, damn it. Well, they didn't write damn it, but they would have if they could have at the Hill. Response from folks on Twitter. Justin Amash, the Libertarian member of Congress, said after reading D.A. Bragg's indictment of Trump and accompanying statement of facts, I'm stunned any prosecutor would move forward with this. It's even flimsier than we were led to believe. 34 stacked counts bootstrapped to an unstated crime to manufacture felony charges. Megyn Kelly tweeted, there's an MSNBC legal expert and a former deputy AG who admits Bragg's claims were rejected by Merrick Garland because they were trivial and insignificant. Then he scrambles to convince the panel Trump is nonetheless terrible. Bonchi said, how does Bragg prove Trump falsified records to cover up another crime when the other crime was never charged? How does a state prosecutor prove a federal campaign finance violation that even the DOJ didn't think was a violation? I mean, there's so many silly things about this. When even the bowling alley waitress said, nah. When even the bowling alley waitress, Merrick Garland, was like, we'll pass on this one. As a federal matter, which is what is being alleged here. He has no jurisdiction. Even if there were a crime, which there's not, he can't do anything about it as a legal matter. This should be tossed immediately. This shouldn't even go to a jury. Anyway, some of the media and audio from last night. Let's go to Trump's speech in Mar-a-Lago. It really was fantastic and highly focused. Give me number 62 here.
Our currency is crashing and will soon no longer be the world standard, which will be our greatest defeat, frankly, in 200 years. There will be no defeat like that. That will take us away from being even a great power. If you took the 5 worst presidents in the history of the United States and added them up, they would not have done near the destruction to our country as Joe Biden and the Biden administration have done. Incredibly, we are now a failing nation. We are a nation in decline. And now these radical left lunatics want to interfere with our elections by using law enforcement. We can't let that happen. With all of this being said, and with a very dark cloud over our beloved country, I have no doubt, nevertheless, that we will make America great again. Thank you very much. And God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
It was solid. It was a solid speech, and I loved that. If you took the 5 worst presidents in the history of the United States and added them up, they would not have done near the destruction to our country as Joe Biden and the Biden administration have done. It's just true. He stayed on point. I was actually pretty impressed that he went after Alvin Bragg. Some people actually suggested that Trump should dare the judge to jail him. I actually heard some people who are Trump enthusiasts say, I wouldn't mind to hear him actually say, go ahead and throw me in jail for speaking up. Go ahead. Try it. But anyway, here's what he had to say about Alvin Bragg, number 67.
Alvin Bragg's wife confirmed a report that claimed her husband has Trump nailed on felonies. She has since locked down her Twitter account. His chief prosecutor, who represented the Democrats and crooked Hillary Clinton in a firm run by Chuck Schumer's brother, Robert, he quit the firm in order to go to work in the DA office in order to get Trump. Can you imagine that? Hillary Clinton's lawyer, Democrat firm. Ultimately, he quit as chief prosecutor because Bragg didn't think he had a case.
Right, and then the broader point, number 68.
This is where we are as a nation. Who would have thought They can't beat us at the ballot box, so they try and beat us through the law. That's the country in which we live, however, right now. This is where we are as a nation. Who would have thought?
That's right. They can't beat us at the ballot box, so they're trying to use the justice system to do it. Ironically, the justice system. And that is the most important point of this entire exercise. That is what we're watching, and this is what we talked about yesterday. Our government has been organized, highly organized, and who is the great organizer? Whose background is organizing? That was his resume entry. Who was the organizer? Barack Obama. The great community organizer. Highly organized. Everything you're watching is highly organized. Every victory the Democrats have had. Every weaponization of government agencies working in collusion with media and social media. All of this highly organized. Community organizer, who is conspicuously absent throughout most of all of this tumult, who has been virtually unheard from throughout all of this calamity of the last couple of years. Mysteriously, the godlike former historic president of these United States, why, it's as though he never even existed. He just vanished like a vapor in the air. He's in the walls somewhere. I don't know. Barack Hussein Obama. Nowhere to be found. Nothing to say about it. Just gone. Gone from the world stage. Gone from any stage. Nowhere to be found. Trump's exactly right. We're watching a government that has been organized, and then not just organized and weaponized, but organized to control information as well. Again, remember what Rachel Maddow said. This is organization. Listen again.
Is making remarks tonight from his home in Florida. As far as we can tell, and what we were prepared for here is that this is basically a campaign speech in which he is repeating his same lies and allegations against his perceived enemies. It is just getting started. So far, he's just giving his normal list of grievances. We don't consider that necessarily newsworthy, and there's a cost to us as a news organization of knowingly broadcasting untrue things. So our deal with you is that we will monitor these remarks. If he does say anything newsworthy, we will turn them around and report on that right away. But for now, just know that it's happening and we're not taking it.
Organized, coordinated, Democrats, media, government, intelligence communities, organized, coordinated. The culture has been weaponized, the government has been weaponized, and it's done so through a highly coordinated and organized messaging system. And it wasn't just Maddow. Excuse me. NPR. You know what they said about this last night, Trump's speech? We will not be airing any remarks the former president may make live. Trump has been known to manipulate these events to his political advantage. And that's fine, except that's not what we owe our audience. Organized. So, National Public Radio, funded by the taxpayers of the United States, has decided that they owe you censorship of the leading Republican candidate and former president of the United States who has just been indicted. They owe it to their audience to not allow them to hear. Organized. Remember the Bond villain, the Surgeon General, who said during COVID that they owed it to you to make sure you did not consume information that they deemed untrue. You couldn't handle it, that it was, I don't even remember what convoluted thing that they said, but it always haunted me. How old was that? Was that like 2 years ago? Vivek Murthy. Remember him, the Bond villain, the guy with the giant Adam's apple? The skinny little neck? He had like a 12-inch neck and an Adam's apple that extended over his collar. The creepy Bond villain. He looked like one of those birds, you know, that does the perpetual pecking on your desk with the liquid at the bottom of the. That's what he looked like to me. Creepy guy. And this was the first time I had ever heard this. This was back in the Jen Psaki days, in the very early days of the Biden administration. I remember he came out and basically said that you were on a need-to-know basis, and any information that they thought disinformation or untrue, you had a responsibility not to hear it, or they had a responsibility not to say it? Do we still have that fast, Eddie, or no? You can't find it?
I think I have it.
All right, let's fire it away.
So people have the right to make their own decisions, but they also have the right to have accurate information to make that decision with. I know when it comes to how we root out the misinformation in society right now, and give people access to accurate information, we've got to do several things. Number one, we've got to recognize that our technology platforms, whether particularly social media, these have an important role to play. These are the predominant places where we're seeing misinformation spread. These platforms have still not stepped up to do the right thing and do enough, I should say, to reduce the spread of misinformation.
Yeah.
But each of us also has a role to play here because we all have platforms. And particularly if you're somebody who has a large following, whether you're an entertainer, a politician, in the media, it's your responsibility, all of our responsibilities, to make sure that we are thoughtful in what we are sharing.
Right.
This is not just about entertainment.
It's your responsibility to be thoughtful.
Clicks.
How old
This
is that clip, by the way? How old is that? Is it dated?
Yep. I pulled that January 27th, 2022.
January of 2022. So it's almost a year and a half old. Mm-hmm. We have play the front of that again.
So people have the right to make their own decisions, but they also have the right to have accurate information to make that decision with. I know when it comes to how we root out
you have the. I loved that, the perverse gaslit way that was delivered. You have the right to hear accurate information. What? How about we just have the right to hear information and we'll decide what's accurate? Did you hear how they did that? Now, that was on COVID. That was even pre-Labor Department shot mandate, if memory serves. But again, that's just COVID. So that was the beginning of what we're living. That's the beginning of Rachel Maddow. That's just another way of NPR saying we owe it to our audience. What did they say? We owe it to our audience to not air Trump using his speech to his political advantage. Think of what they're saying. Our delicate flowers who listen to NPR, we owe it to you to not allow you to hear the former president who's just been indicted defend himself. We owe that to you. Much like Vivek Murthy said, you have the right to hear information that is true and correct. Rachel Maddow, we owe it to our viewers not to allow you to hear a man defend himself. What kind of Orwellian weird newspeak is this? Well, it's organized. A weaponized government in concert with the Democrats, organized media keeping you from hearing anyone who doesn't toe the line in suggesting that Donald Trump is a criminal. And if there's a public forum for him to speak out and defend himself, we're not going to air that. You have the right to not be assaulted by Trump's defense of himself. Interesting game they're playing, isn't it? Hey there, it's Chris, back on the phone with my dentist and friend Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, Pennsylvania, just off the Blue Route with new technology. You have not just new associates, but they brought new technology into the business to make it a little easier for patients.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time in dentistry. We have now introduced a three-dimensional x-ray called a CBCT scan in our office, which allows us to diagnose and things earlier for patients. My daughter is placing a lot of implants in the past that referred out. It's now being done in-house. And we also, we've been using dental or computer scanners for taking impressions for crowns for about the last 2 to 3 years. We now have introduced the next step, which is a milling machine, and we can now make crowns in the office. Things can be completed in the same day as opposed to having a temporary crown put on and 3 weeks later coming back and having a permanent crown put on. It's really a game changer, and it's a time saver for our patients to not have to make multiple visits to the office.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. So what do we have here? We have a compliant, coordinated media in organized coordination with the Democrat Party, which we've long known, but this is next level. They're now, remember what Robert Reich said the former Clinton labor secretary when Elon Musk bought Twitter. I don't know that you would remember that, but it's yet another. It's much like the Bond villain Vivek Murthy. It's the same vein. Democrats keep telling us who they are and where they're going and how they object to anybody who opposes them speaking publicly. So NPR has said, we're not going to air the president. You have a right not to be upset hearing the indicted former president defend himself. MSNBC, you have a right to not hear. We have a responsibility to keep you from the indicted former president defending himself. Think of that. That's NPR and MSNBC's official position last night. We're not going to let you hear the former president defend himself in an indictment. It's never happened in the history of our country. And we're not going to let you hear the man who's been indicted defend himself because we think it upsets you and it's just him politically posturing. So you have a right to not be offended by that, and we will keep it from you. Robert Reich, the Clinton labor secretary, said of Elon Musk purchasing Twitter, he declared that this was Elon Musk's dream and Trump's dream and Putin's dream. It was the dream of every dictator, a strongman, demagogue, modern-day robber baron on earth. For the rest of us, it's a brave new nightmare. According to Reich, censorship is necessary to protect American democracy. I mean, if Elon Musk had not decided to purchase Twitter, a lot of us would never know the crucial details in the history of American politics in the Trump era, and it would have remained a secret possibly forever. Had Elon Musk not bought Twitter, we would never know the extent of this. The coordination, the organization. Even at the New York Times, number 74 here, yesterday, a guy called Michael Shear, as this was unfolding, the New York Times' Michael Shear was in the White House press briefing room with Pepe Le Pew. And now, remember, Jen Psaki said over on her new Sunday show over there on MSNBC, counsel to Democrats by Jen Psaki is don't talk about this. Don't respond to it. Don't say anything. Pretend like it's not happening. So the immediate past president, who's running to become the next president, challenging the current president, ostensibly, has just been indicted. You don't think the White House would have something to say about that? You don't think the White House should have something to say about that? You don't think Joe Biden should have something to say about that? They claim, no, they don't. And even the New York Times is incredulous. And there's a back and forth between the Michael Shear of the New York Times and Pepe Le Pew that's quite interesting. Take a listen.
It was a different moment and a different time. I hear you. I hear.
Follow up.
I know, but let me.
Sure, go ahead.
When it comes to these types of cases, these criminal, specific cases, we're just not going to comment. I know there's a broad. I get you. I know there's a broader question of what this means, the precedent, and what the president is going to decide or make decisions that he might make, like hypothetical questions. I'm just not going to comment from here on that.
I get it. I was asking why you weren't going to comment on that.
I'm hoping that I laid that out for you, and I just laid out why we commented on January 6th, and we're just going to be very mindful. These are ongoing cases.
500 cases involving Americans whose freedom was at risk.
I hear you. But
right?
This is something that all of Americans watch in real time. And people died. People died.
Karine, I don't need a lecture on the fact that people
But you're lecturing
died.
me.
But
you're lecturing me.
I'm asking questions, and what I'm saying is there are millions of people out there watching today. You called January 6th historic. It was absolutely historic, and none of us had ever seen that before. Nobody's seen this before either. There are millions and millions of Americans watching the first time in 250 years a former president be hauled into court and processed for arrest. That means something. That has some effect, potentially, I suspect, on American democracy and on how the rest of the world, the president has talked a lot about how the rest of the world sees the United States in the wake of January 6th. Totally valid. Why isn't there a similar kind of assessment about how the world is watching us now? Good or bad? I'm not making a judgment whichever way. I'm just saying.
And I hear your question. January 6th was a different moment. It just was. It was something that was incredibly devastating. People died on that day and were harmed. And it was just something that we saw visually, that we reacted to, and many people were scared in that moment. And as the president was taking office as the next president of the United States, a president that ran on bringing the country together, on protecting our democracy, it was something that it was important to speak to at that moment. And also, we know that Americans still very much care about this. When it comes to a criminal investigation like this, that is ongoing, we are just not going to comment. We're not going to interfere. We're not going to politically interfere from here. And we've been consistent. We've been very consistent. I know you're bringing up January 6th. I just laid out why we believe that was very different. But we're just going to be consistent.
It literally makes no sense. It's doublespeak. It's total nonsense. This is unimportant to Americans? January 6th was very important to Americans. It was scary. Hey, you stupid moron. This is very scary to most sober-minded Americans that a former president has been indicted over nothing. It's very scary for American democracy, you moron. Way scarier than January 6th, I'll tell you that. What this country just saw happen yesterday scares me more than anything I saw on January 6th by a lot. Yes, and that includes people even breaking doors and windows to get into the Capitol building. I'm still more alarmed at a nonsense 34-count charge against a former president who's now running for office to supplant the current president. Obama's zeal to organize his particular brand of Marxism, and it's become very obvious with the weaponization of the collusion lie, the Russia collusion lie, the coordination necessary to carry out the Russian collusion lie, fusing political goals of the Democrat Party, the institutional agenda of the intelligence and security agencies, and the narrative power and moral fervor of the media with tech companies' surveillance architecture. There is a piece out there, and it prints to 51 pages, and I'm going to be spending time with it throughout the weekend so that I can more decisively. I put it up on the Harum Society as a link on Monday, and if you'd like to read it, it's there. It's called A Guide to Understanding the Hoax of the Century. It prints 51 pages. It's a heavy lift. It's a big read. But it is the theme of what we're living. It is the theme is what we're talking about right now. This is organization to the highest degree. Everything you're watching is organized, folks. And don't forget that. This is not happening accidentally. This is not happening in a vacuum. This is organized and coordinated. Every bit of it, from start to finish. Why did the Democrats win in Wisconsin? The word, it's the theme of the morning. What is it? What's the word of the morning, Fast Eddie? Come on, pay attention, damn it. What's the word of the morning? Barack Obama is a organizer. Organizer. Eddie's got vacation brain. He wants out the door. Eddie's 1 foot out the door already. All right, now listen. It's organized. This woman, Milwaukee's County Circuit Court judge, what was she? She was a former organizer. Yeah, a teachers' union organizer. And as Greg Price on Twitter said last night, and it's just true, and I'm sorry to say it's true, and this is why when we get all wrapped around the axle about who's going to be the next nominee of the Republican Party, I say, what the hell are you debating that? Why waste your time with that? We're being out-organized, folks. I don't care whether it's Trump or DeSantis. What a stupid waste of time to get wrapped up in that. The Democrats out-organize us, and they did it again in Wisconsin. Wisconsin is now effectively Pennsylvania. I'm sorry to depress you, but that's true, what happened yesterday. So Wisconsin now has a Supreme Court that is going to strike down voter ID, bring back ballot harvesting before the presidential in 2024. It was the most important election of the year, and conservatives allowed themselves to get heavily outspent, and they didn't even notice it until it was too late. They were out-organized. Where is the great community organizer? Where is Mr. Two-Term History? Barack Obama, where is he? He's organizing. Organizing. We're not going to carry the opposition message today because we think it's too upsetting and too political for you to hear. What you need to know right now is the opposition is a criminal. The opposition to us is criminal. There have been criminal charges leveled against the opposition to us. We're not going to let you hear that criminal's defense of himself because we think it's too upsetting to you and probably full of mistruths. And we feel it's our responsibility to keep you from hearing the defense of the criminal that stands in opposition to us. So just trust us. Bad guy, criminal, opposition to us. We'll let you know when you need to know what he has to say. But until then, what else is on? You have the right to not hear misinformation. Organized, coordinated, organized. Keep that word in the frontal lobe of your noggin as we go forward. All of it is organized. It is not an accident. You're not imagining it. It's coordinated. Democrats, federal government agencies, media. Organized. You know the jingle, right? For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com. It's true. It really is the best night's sleep in the whole wide world. I've been sleeping on MyPillow 2.0 for the last few weeks, and it is so comfortable. Can I be honest? I didn't really buy the whole Mike Lindell patented adjustable fill thing. I didn't know what that meant, adjustable fill. I was like, yeah, sure. The pillow's going to go flat. It doesn't go flat. You know how you buy a pillow at the store and you're like, oh, that's nice, and you sleep on it for a couple of days? I got a big, fat, heavy head. And all it takes is a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of nights where I get a little warm, and all of a sudden that pillow just, and a couple of weeks my neck is cricked, and it's miserable. I've never had luck with pillows. Well, I tell you, this fill that My Pillow talks about and Mike talks about, it is adjustable, and it constantly stays. You adjust it at night, and your head is like even. It's not like, cranked down. It's like I haven't laid on a pillow night after night for weeks that keeps my head even with my shoulders. But this pillow does. And now, because it's MyPillow 2.0, you say, what makes it more special? Well, they've got a new fabric that dissipates heat and humidity on top of that. So it stays cool all night long. There is no flipping to the cool side of the pillow. The pillow stays cool. So it's that firmness and adjustability that you like, and it's also now cool to the touch. The fabric is soft. It's great. Couple that with the Giza Dream Sheets, the MyPillow body pillow. I feel like I'm sleeping on a cloud every night. I really have slept like a baby lately. Christine loves her MyPillow slippers. I sent my entire Chris Stigall Show team MyPillow travel pillows. Got a dog bed for Eddie and his dog. Dean, my dog, sleeps on a MyPillow dog bed. One of my associate producers is loving his Giza Dream Sheets and the slippers. Look, if you want really high-quality stuff, is it the cheapest? No. I'll just be honest with you. I know some people say, oh, it's expensive. Well, look, it's made in America. It has a 60-day money-back guarantee. It has a 10-year warranty on every single product Mike sells. So it's well made, and he stands behind it. So look, that comes, with a bit of a cost associated with it. That's true. You want something cheap and Chinese? Fine. Now, you're not going to find that at MyPillow. But if you want a really great discount on that, go to MyPillow.com and use my name, Chris Podcast. If you type in Chris Podcast, it lets them know you listen, and I appreciate it. So the promo code is Chris Podcast. That gets you the discount on the stuff. You get a second MyPillow 2.0 if you order one. Chris Podcast is the code at MyPillow.com or call 800-932-5056.
And now this massive election interference at a scale never seen before in our country beginning with the radical left, George Soros-backed prosecutor Alvin Bragg of New York, who campaigned on the fact that he would get President Trump. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. This is a guy campaigning. You want to get President Trump at any cost, and this before he knew anything about me, didn't know a thing about me. He was campaigning. As it turns out, virtually everybody that has looked at this case, including rhinos and even hardcore Democrats, say there is no crime and that it should never have been brought. Never have been brought. Everybody.
Yeah, there were a couple of honest, somewhat honest brokers in media yesterday. Traditional left-wing outlets like NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Haake, I think it is Haake, Garrett Haake, asking Bragg yesterday in a press conference, why are you doing this when your predecessor and the feds all said there's nothing to this?
The investigation, in my view, was not concluded into the conduct in particular that is the basis for the charges today. Since that time, we've had more evidence made available to the office and an opportunity to meet with additional witnesses. So, as I said earlier, I've been doing this for 24 years. I don't bring cases prior to a thorough and rigorous investigation. Now, having done so, the case has been brought.
Mr. Bragg, Garrett Haake with NBC News. Your predecessor took a hard look at this case and decided not to charge it. Federal prosecutors took a hard look at this case and decided not to charge it. Do you believe you have new evidence that led you to decide to charge this, or
no?
Why now?
No.
Well, as I just mentioned, we have had available to the office additional evidence that was not in the office's possession prior to my time here. And as to your part of your question about the federal, we have a distinct and strong, I would say profound, independent interest in New York State. This is the business capital of the world. We regularly
that's enough.
Cases.
So the point is, I give NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Haake for bringing it up, for even challenging this fraud. Okay, so Merrick Garland looked at this. A guy who was ready to send the FBI after parents who stood up at school board meetings. That guy who raided Mar-a-Lago, that guy looked at this and said, I don't think we can pull the trigger on this. And you're still doing it? To which he says, well, I mean, the thing about Merrick Garland is he doesn't care about it like we New Yorkers care about it. Right. It's so unserious. I mean, look, if it weren't so serious, it would be comical. He's a joke. He's a buffoon. It's deadly serious what they're doing. It's a nothing burger. And Van Jones, again, even admits it. You know, Van Jones a couple weeks ago, remember, he didn't want this. And the other prosecutors who are in Georgia and Washington, D.C., they're still on deck. They still want to bite at the apple, too. He believed at the time, remember what he said at the time, he did not want this case being first up because, and I believe it's true, now anything thrown at Trump from here on, no matter how legit or how on the level or how seemingly dirty it looks, now it just looks like pile-on. Nothing's going to come from this, and now that they've done this to him once, you do it a second time and a third time, it's like impeachment 2, hoax 2. The reboot is almost never as good as the original. You only get to do these things once. And if it doesn't stick and doesn't take the first time, what makes you think you're going to do it again and again? Remember Jones warning people a couple of weeks ago about this?
What do you say to that, Van? Because there has been some criticism that, look, the first charges against a former president and the historic nature of it shouldn't come from a local prosecutor who ran as a Democrat and was elected, that the politics of this could overshadow other cases, like we know the DOJ case that is going on. What do you say to that?
Well, if anybody is a Republican and they have been afraid that there's some conspiracy, some well-organized conspiracy among progressives, they can relax now, because you would not start with this charge. You would start with the charge in Georgia, where he was interfering with elections. You would start with the charge that he was helping the insurrectionists in a coup. You wouldn't start with an 8-year-old porn star payoff. So this is proof, if nothing else, that the progressives are not very well organized.
So this is Van Jones. This is a communist on CNN who said he thinks Donald Trump's been involved in a coup and rigged an election. And so he's like, look, the dude's dirty. He's done terrible things, but this porn thing from 8 years ago, don't do this. When a communist like Van Jones and Merrick Garland are like, nah, we'll do something else. They're begging him not to do that. Bragg doesn't care. All he cares about is his own backyard, and in his own backyard, he's a hero. He slayed the Trump dragon. So yesterday, Van Jones on CNN, doubling down on this concept. Okay, you did it. I told you shouldn't. Now you've done it.
I think that the heat is on this DA. I think he's going to make a very sober decision, and I would not be surprised if he doesn't step back from the brink. I just think that the reality is he's got to make a sober decision now. I agree with David. A charge like this, a porn star payoff 7 years ago, somehow tied to the election, but not really. It doesn't seem like the right way to go.
This is an organizer talking now. This is Van Jones, organizer, ally of Barack Obama. These are organizers, and they're like, this is not, you are out of step with the plan, man. This is not the one. This is not the one that's going to stick. He continued and actually expressed a little bit of empathy, even, for Trump yesterday. And this is what concerns them. That this kind of flimsy nonsense is actually going to make him increasingly more empathetic to the American people who have been railroaded by the justice system themselves.
He looks sad. Yeah. He looks sad. He looks like the weight of it's hitting him. And, just as a human being, I don't take joy. I don't like the prison system. I don't like what it does to people. I don't like this process. So I don't take any celebration in seeing him looking that way. He looks sad. Now, doesn't mean that accountability is not owed. We don't know what he's going to be charged with. There's a lot more. But at that moment, that is not a conqueror. That is a granddad having a very bad day.
Now, there's something to this, I think, and I don't want to make too much of it, but I just have this funny hunch, because they keep coming, people like Van Jones keep coming back to how victimized they and people that look like Van Jones feel by the prison system, right? They keep coming back to that. Joy Reid says similar things. Well, as a black person, we know all too well the backhand and the injustice of our supposed justice system, right? This is what you keep hearing left-wingers of color saying in the media. That, hey, Donald Trump's getting screwed by the man? Yeah, well, it's about time. Welcome to our world. And that's literally what some of these people are saying now. Oh, there's no crime? Oh, he didn't do anything wrong? Yeah, tough noogies. That's what we've been dealing with for years. So there's an element of that. There's this kind of like this racial thing they're trying to make it about. But I think Van Jones is also onto something that I noticed when Trump ran back in 2015 that was new to me. I'd never seen a Republican candidate connect with minorities personally like I saw in Donald Trump. I'd never seen it. And I saw it with my own eyes. I saw young minority men excited about Donald Trump. And I had never witnessed a Republican candidate of any stripe connect with minority men organically. Like, I think I told you this story that there were, I was watching the very first debate the night he said, only Rosie O'Donnell. You called women fat pigs, blah, blah, blah. Does that not feel like eons ago? Megyn Kelly was a Fox News anchor back then. You've called women dogs, pigs, blah, 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 blah. He says, only Rosie O'Donnell. That was his first answer of the very first debate. We were having a debate watch party. Place roared and erupted. I'm standing in the back of the debate watch party. There's two young men of color. One is a bouncer for the event, and one's the bartender, and they're watching it alongside. They high-five one another, and this large black young bouncer says to his barkeep friend, I'm voting for that guy. He's hysterical. I will never forget that moment for the rest of my life. And I went, holy crap. I've never heard a Republican ever make anyone, a young man, never mind a young man of color, excited, enthused, proclaim, I'm voting for him. He entertains me. He connects. He scored higher with minority voters than any Republican in modern American history. And I think people like Van Jones actually wonder if this episode and episodes like this constant pile-on, doesn't actually victimize him and make him a more sympathetic figure to those who feel victimized by the system themselves. That might be making too much of it. Maybe that may be Pollyanna, but I wonder. I do kind of wonder. I mean, you'd start with this case if you needed a distraction. Every network has coordinated the enthusiasm. Biden certainly needs this distraction. The polling is not good for old Joe. And everybody knows it. Destruction and decay all around. Boy, even Jill, even Dr. Jill is having an extraordinarily tough time of it out there. Did you hear what she tried to pull off? Who's this woman? I don't follow basketball. Never mind women's college basketball. No disrespect. What's the LSU were the women's champions this year, right?
Yes.
Okay. And who's their star player on LSU? I don't mean any disrespect. I don't follow college basketball. I forget the woman's name. I've been seeing her all over sports media over the last 48 hours, and I've been a little wrapped up with this Trump thing. So in the corner of my eye, I've been seeing sports media wall to wall with this woman who keeps apparently the sports world has been going back and forth shooting at one another over this woman because she was smack talking during the championship game. Who are these people?
It's Angel Reese.
Angel Reese
is from LSU, and Caitlin Clark was from Iowa.
So, long story short, Caitlin Clark, who's the star for Iowa women's basketball, she, I don't know, was talking a little smack or signaled in an earlier game, kind of something to, I can't really explain it because I don't really understand it myself, but long story short, let's just call it for ease of communication. This Iowa women's basketball player was flapping her gums a little bit in the previous game, being kind of cocky. And so they make it to the championship game, and this Angel Reese, who plays for LSU, she decided to give it a little bit back. She's now they're playing Iowa, and so she starts chirping back at this Iowa player, mocking her with her own hand gestures. They thump Iowa. They beat Iowa. And she points to her finger like, I'm going to get the ring. You know, it's just jawing. It's what, athletes do. I guess maybe you don't typically see it amongst women, but why not? Whatever. I mean, it's called taunting, I guess, in football. You get flagged for it if it's too aggressive. But anyway, all right, so it's taunting. And I guess the sports heads were shooting back and forth at one another. She's classless. She's a blah, 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 whatever. I don't know. Here's what I love. None of that interests me. I don't care about any of those people or that story. I share all that story with you because now it's very intense, right? There's this nastiness building and brewing. LSU is beating Iowa. I mean, there's nasty people. Shaq is fighting. Keith Olbermann is fighting. All these people are fighting over there. Intense. LSU has won. Only a Biden can inject themselves in this situation and actually screw it up to the point that no one likes you. And it's the absolute worst of all solutions. Here's Dr. Jill Biden's solution.
So congratulations to both teams. So I know we'll have the champions come to the White House. We always do. So, we'll have LSU come. But you know what? I'm going to tell Joe, I think Iowa should come too because they played such a good game. So, right? So winners and losers, that's sportsmanship. That's good sportsmanship.
Oh, no. Oh, no, she didn't. She didn't. Did she just say she's going to tell the president of the United States to invite the loser of the championship game because that's good sportsmanship? And did you hear the crickets in response to her impromptu decision? That's just good sportsmanship, right? What a great game they played. So I've decided I'm inviting everyone who played, win or lose. I'm inviting everyone. I'm going to tell Joe. Huh? What do you think, everybody? Huh? You hear one guy coughing in the back. Like there's nothing. Cricket. Because everybody knows that is an unmitigated disaster. You don't invite the loser of a championship game to the White House. That's an honor. It's supposed to be a high honor to go to the White House as the championship winner. You don't bring the loser of the Super Bowl or the World Series to the White House. You bring the winner. I think it'd be nice if we bring everybody to the White House. Oh, no. So I'm going to tell Joe, bring the... No. Don't do that. I'm going to tell Joe to bring everybody to the... So to make matters worse, as only a Biden can, now you've got these two teams that are just white hot and jawing at each other and have got like the sports commentariat fighting amongst one another about the two of them. Let's just have everybody come on into the White House. Now all these people hate one another's guts. They've just had this hard-fought battle. And you're victorious. This Angel Reese woman, who I don't even know, who a lot of people have been attacking, and she's out there kind of defending herself as, okay, look, I got mouthy, I jawed a little bit during a game, whatever. She's the victor. And so Joe Biden says, everybody come to the White House. She gets on Twitter and just trashes Dr. Jill and says, okay, well, then I'm not coming. So now Dr. Jill has managed to tick off the star of the winning team. She's ticked them up. She's disrespected the star of the winning team, and the star of the winning team, who's caused all this national controversy, is just not even going to go. She's like, to hell with that. I'm not going. And I would bet a lot of the LSU winning ladies team doesn't go now. They're like, I'm not. No, we won. We belong at the White House. We're not going to go and stand next to the people we beat. It was our honor, not theirs. And by the way, if you're any self-respecting Iowa player, I don't know that I go. What are you, a consolation prize? This is like when Kamala Harris walked into the locker room of that team that played, who'd they play? And they just got shellacked in the Elite Eight. And she walked into the locker room and she said, hey, guys, hey, it's Kamala. You showed them what, was it Howard? I think it was Howard University. You showed them what Howard's all about. You talk about people that should not be injecting themselves into sports. Kamala Harris and Dr. Jill. These people have just lost big stage games. Hey, it was just great that you competed. So, yay you. How about everybody come to the White House? Is there anything you less want to hear as the loser of a game like that?
Well, Chris, that's smart analysis, but we're not even playing Democrat. They're even off of the talking points. Angel Reese is black, and Caitlin Clark is white.
That's a great
point.
So
why are you, Dr. Jill, a Democrat when your whole party is identity? Why are you inviting the white star to that lost?
You know
in
what?
The championship
I hadn't
game?
even considered that. I wasn't even talking about that. But you're right. This woman in Iowa that Angel Reese was mocking and taunting was a white girl. So the white girl was doing the initial taunting. The black girl, who was the victor, and is being people are shooting at her for taunting. And again, this big kerfuffle. But that's a great point. So the black woman was victorious over the white woman, and Dr. Jill says, bring in Whitey. Screw it up like only a Biden can. Bring in Kamala for a pep talk, maybe. You guys did great. You did great.
You guys are so good. You played hard. You played to the very last second. You made all us Bisons so proud. You showed the world who Bison are. You know, I was at Howard back in the day where we were just happy that there was a game, much less getting to this place, right? And I see Bison literally all over the world, and we've been talking about you, this team. You make us so proud. So I know you may not be feeling great right now, okay?
And now I'm really not.
You are. You are excellence.
Oh, accessories in a pantsuit. Yeah, that's who you want. Coming into your locker room after you've just been crushed. Give me Dr. Jill again. I'm going to tell Joe to let everybody come.
So congratulations to both teams. So I know we'll have the champions come to the White House. We always do. So, we'll have LSU come. But you know what? I'm going to tell Joe, I think Iowa should come too because they played such a good game. So, right? So winners and
Listen to
losers,
the crowd.
that's sportsmanship. That's good sportsmanship.
10 million people watched that game, by the way. It was the most watched women's championship in history. And somehow the Bidens managed to lose everybody. Neither Jill nor Kamala know anything about sports, and it shows. It shows in those clips. They know nothing about what they're talking. And all I can conclude is this is one of those kind of Joe's probably going to need help with the Iowa primary. I don't know if, seriously, I don't know if this is Dr. Jill calculating this is ingratiating herself to Iowa. This is such a disaster. All I can conclude is she's thinking about Iowa and Joe may need help in Iowa, and that's a goodwill gesture to Iowa for what may be Grandpa's needed help if there's a primary challenger down the road. They don't care about sports. They want votes and they want FaceTime, and I think they managed to get none. Just a disaster. Sorry, that's apropos of nothing. It's not a particularly important story, but it's just something culturally I wanted to call your attention to that was going on.
That's a great point. I didn't even think of that. Didn't the Democrats make South Carolina the official first stop now?
They did
the first primary?
because Joe got his butt kicked in Iowa. That's why.
Right.
Joe didn't even come close to sniffing Iowa. He was thumped hard in Iowa, as a matter of fact. It wasn't until South Carolina that Joe Biden became a thing. He couldn't win a primary if he was paying people to do it. So I don't know if that was a reason or not. Hard to know. Hard to know with these people. All I know is how you manage to lose everyone all at once is a gift that only a Biden can deliver. Joe Lockhart, the former White House press secretary, snarked on Twitter yesterday, "If you're walking down Fifth Avenue, you can feel a little safer. Trump can't shoot you and get away with it. Ha, 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 ha." Is Joe Lockhart familiar with New York City? Because I haven't even been there in a while, and I'm pretty sure that's not true. In fact, I think people can openly assassinate one another and probably be less punished and scrutinized than Donald Trump was yesterday for an unspecified crime. Our buddy Joe Concha, Fox News contributor, up early. God bless Joe Concha. I'm so glad they pump him full of caffeine and wake him up early. Then we can take advantage. I saw him up before our show even started this morning. Hello, Joe. Welcome back.
Greetings from New York City. I just got off of 6th Avenue, not quite 5th. Just left Fox and heading home. I'll be heading back in later. But to answer your question, I just looked at that Lockhart tweet that you were referencing. And, he's on CNN. He's a former press secretary. That got 10 whole retweets. Boy, that guy's really got his fastball, huh? 10. I put up a picture of my dog and I get like 300. This isn't hard, man.
Joe, you are a media ombudsman extraordinaire. You cover media and politics at The Hill as well as at Fox. And here's something that I know is not necessarily profound, but it's just so obvious and true. I want to play for you first Rachel Maddow's response to Donald Trump speaking in defense of himself last night. Take a listen to this.
Is making remarks tonight from his home in Florida. As far as we can tell, and what we were prepared for here is that this is basically a campaign speech in which he is repeating his same lies and allegations against his perceived enemies. It is just getting started. So far, he's just giving his normal list of grievances. We don't consider that necessarily newsworthy, and there's a cost to us as a news organization of knowingly broadcasting untrue things. So our deal with you is that we will monitor these remarks. If he does say anything newsworthy, we will turn them around and report on that right away. But for now, just know that it's happening and we're not taking it.
NPR's anchor also said we will not be airing the remarks made by the former president live because he's been known to manipulate events like these for political advantage. That's fine, except that's not what we owe our audience. Joe, this is a theme now. He's guilty of a crime and we're not going to air his response to it because we owe it to you to keep things you don't want to hear from you. That's an interesting new position.
Rachel Maddow? Yes, did she just call MSNBC a news organization? So, who's the the anchor there? All right. No, let me. All right. So you say, oh, but you're at Fox. Yeah, Fox. We have Brett Baer. Okay, or we have Martha McCallum, or we have Shannon Bream. Okay. You want to argue against their journalistic bona fides, then fine. Go right ahead. I think they're pretty solid. All right, so let's look at MSNBC. Who do they have anchoring on this big night? Oh, Rachel Maddow, right? Well, Laschenk is a partisan opinion activist, and she's going around saying, oh, we have to protect you from Donald Trump's lies. How about your lies? For 3 years, Rachel, every night in your show, insisting that Donald Trump had colluded with the Kremlin, and the Kremlin installed him into the White House after Russia, quote, hacked our voting machines. Oh, well, that sounds pretty election denial BB to me, right? So I don't know. What do you want me to say? It's just so smug. It's the condescension that people dislike so much, and they're getting their little ratings bump now. But once this story goes away, at least for a little bit, they're going to go right back to where they were again, in the toilet, because they would actually have to report on the current sitting president and his record on inflation, crime, education, the border, foreign policy. That's what this is all designed to do, Chris. Make no mistake. All right. Alvin Bragg has no interest in winning this case. He knows he can't win it. You hear legal analysts across the board, even those who hate Trump, say that this is a profoundly limp case. They just want to do with this what they did with the January 6th Commission, which is keep it in the public spotlight for as long as possible through the primary debates all the way up to, when's the trial date again? Oh, January 2024. Isn't that the Iowa caucuses? Of course. They want to extend this for as long as possible so Trump is front and center and his legal problems, or lack thereof, instead of Joe Biden and what he has done to this country. And polling shows people do not like the job he is doing, do not want him to run again. So let's take the focus off of him.
People seem, Joe Concha, brilliant analysis, and he's written a piece, by the way, at The Hill called Media Voter Disconnect Prompts Two Big Questions About Trump Indictment. This was the piece from a couple of days ago that I'm drawing from specifically, and it was really well written, and I didn't know this until you'd written it, that the numbers came in for MSNBC and CNN, and as you just said, they saw their biggest viewership bump since Trump himself was president. He is. I've concluded that they once realized that he was catnip. They never thought him serious. They never thought he could win. So they put him on TV all the time because he did so well for them. But then all of a sudden they realized they kind of created him too, didn't they? Is that kind of what they realized? Is that why they've come to this realization now? We're not going to air him anymore.
Of course. Look at Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, right? A Morning Joe. Go back and watch those interviews sometime. I mean, they were fawning. They're laughing along with them. They allowed Donald Trump to join by phone for like a half hour, just on end, and basically gave him the platform, didn't challenge him on anything. And now they have quadrupled down in their hatred of him. But it's not even hatred, because it's all phony, because they didn't like the backlash they got from their audience. So now it's all just inauthentic. I just wish on one of those stations, right, be the contrarian. Maybe you go on and you say, this is like if Rachel Maddow went on and said, you know what, this is a weak case. I don't like Trump. I don't want to see him get reelected, but I'm looking at the facts here, and there is no crime defined. So therefore, this is probably going to Trump's going to have jet fuel to the nomination, because Ron DeSantis, can you find Ron DeSantis at this point? It just came out yesterday. His approval rating in Florida is at 60%, which is incredible for any politician these days. And yet you're never going to hear anything about DeSantis' accomplishments, because Trump, good, bad, and ugly, is going to take all the oxygen out of the room, just like he did in 2016, when none of the candidates then could get any airtime either to make their case.
It really is hard, Joe Concha. And by the way, his book, a bestseller, and you should pick it up. In fact, I'm giving away a copy of it today. Come on, man. The truth about Joe Biden's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad presidency. Objectively, by every metric, every poll, and everything you look at, Chuck Todd said this weekend, the only thing that unifies Republicans and opposition is the cultural issues. I was like, are you kidding? The country's rotten. I mean, the border, we have no border, we have no economy, we have no security. The cultural issues are but one of many things on fire. But anyway, neither here nor there. The Biden and Clinton voter with a straight face and no hint of irony keeps saying, no one is above the law. I mean, it's remarkable that anyone that would talk about Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton can say the words, no one is above the law.
Right. Wait, what's her name again? Paula Jones, right. She was paid something called hush money, right? I mean, and then you got Hillary Clinton saying no one is above the law. I can't even get my head around this, but, wait, Chris, I'm having a little trouble hearing you. Just give me a second. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That was Tim Russert rolling over in his grave. It was so loud. He's like, that guy has my job at Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. The only thing that unifies Republicans is cultural issues. As you said, you know what unifies me, to a person who says that they're going to be tougher on the border, that 182 people have been arrested trying to get into this country who are on the, FBI terror watch list who came through the U.S. southern border. Those are the ones we know about. And I have friends that have kids that have died, that overdosed on fentanyl. One found their kid face down on his desk when he was doing his homework with his earbuds in his ear. All right, and we're doing nothing about it. I would think the president whose son has, a drug problem or had a drug problem would care more about this issue, but nothing happens. I could go on and on. We talked about crime, obviously, under Alvin Bragg and all these DAs. That may unify Republicans as well to, enforce the laws in the book. Maybe everybody, Republican or Democrat, is against inflation still above 6%. I could go on, but no, it's not just cultural issues, Chuck Todd. And again, smugness is the only word that comes to mind when I think of anybody whose channel ends in NBC as far as having an on-air job.
Trump brought up last night, Joe, and the polls do seem to bear it out. I know you and I have talked about this before, that the public, a good chunk, he said 17%. I don't know. I can't even remember the figures anymore. But a chunk of this country said, in response to finding out about Hunter Biden's laptops and the financial transactions, had they known about it, had that been widely reported, that would have altered their vote between Trump and Biden. So now that that's widely known, do you think if it's a Trump v. Biden situation again, can the media be quiet about Trump? Can they keep Trump from the public and continue to shelter Biden? Or is basically the ugliness, warts and all, about both of these men out for full consumption now? And it's a different ball game, even if the media tries to manipulate it, if that makes sense.
I think from a media perspective, that the media isn't the media that we grew up with, right? Where you had Peter Jennings on ABC and Broke on NBC and Rather on CBS. And you basically got your news from those nightly newscasts or from the Sunday morning talk shows and from your local newscast, of course. Now it is fractured and splintered so much, particularly because of social media, that I don't know if they control the narrative remotely as much as they used to. And that's why Trump won in 2016. That The Hill compiled a list of the number of endorsements that were given out by major newspapers before that election. And what we found was that 57 of 59 went to Hillary Clinton. She got 57 of 59 endorsements. And you know what that got her? A set of steak knives and a concession speech. In other words, it had no impact, right? People actually probably voted against it on some level. So maybe the media being against Trump, it's like the IRS being against you. Of course, you're going to be against that. So I think maybe, as long as Trump sticks to issues, okay?
Yep.
And he doesn't it doesn't have to be Festivus during every speech and grievances about, the Steele dossier and the 2020 election being stolen, as he keeps saying it over and over again. Look forward and just do what you did in 2016 in terms of this is broken and here's how I'm going to fix it. And the swamp is broken and this is why I'm going to clean it out. If he sticks to that, he'll win. But he has to be disciplined to do that. And what I've seen from Donald Trump is very little discipline.
Well, and to your point, last night, it was very clear. My wife noticed, and actually she's not a fan of Trump's speeches. She's voted for him, but not a fan of his speeches generally. And she was watching this with me last night, and she said, I like what he's doing. He seems really focused. I said, I guarantee he had several attorneys tell him, you need to very carefully, this is a very important moment, very significant. You need to very carefully deliver this speech and stay on message. And he did. And we don't often see that from him. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And he could do that. And people say, well, he was a little boring. He was a little, I didn't see like the Trump in 2016 where he just went off the cuff completely. That's okay.
Yes.
We already know who he is now. Right.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't always have to be a carnival. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Just be laser focused on those four things.
Yes.
And he should win, I would think, because there is no Biden base. Right. His own party doesn't want him to run. And then obviously, if you look at Plan B, because he's going to be in his mid-80s, if he does win, is Kamala Harris. And do you really want her running the country? So I think he should win. But I honestly think if DeSantis got the nomination, it might be a little easier. And if Glenn Young can get the nomination, I think he would coast to victory. But, that's not going to happen. So why am I even talking about it?
Joe Concha is so great to do this with us early. But again, like I said, when they wake him up at what time do you get up to these Fox News hits? Again, you start before our show in the morning even starts.
When I have to go into the studio, then we're talking 4 a.m. And I was on Hannity last night. Well, I kind of, and didn't end until 10. So I'm in this weird vortex right now, or I don't know whether to take the blue or the red pill, but I'm leaning towards blue.
Well, we're glad to tap into whatever that is that you have, that font of constant energy that Joe Concha provides. Come On, Man is his book, The Truth About Joe Biden's Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Presidency, and I know we'll continue to see you on Fox. Joe, thanks for your time this morning, my friend.
Oh, wait, it's Viagra. Screw it, I'll take it anyway. All right, thank you, Chris.
Be careful. Call your doctor after 4 hours if it doesn't recede or whatever.
I'm coming home, honey.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.